Good morning, I'm Dr. Gordon.
And I'm Dr. Marin. Today we will be discussing the impact of climate change on communicable diseases.
We also have a guest joining us today. This is Mosquitoes.
Well, now that everyone is here, let's get into it. There has been substantial amount of evidence that has led us to believe that changes in infectious disease transmission patterns are likely a major consequence of climate change.
So what exactly is climate change?
Well, to put it simply, climate change occurs when changes in Earth's climate system result in new weather patterns that last for long periods of time. In the past couple of decades, climate change has often been linked to global warming, which is a gradual increase in the overall temperature of the Earth's atmosphere regarding the greenhouse effect caused by increased levels of carbon dioxide and other pollutants. This warming trend is significant because most of it is likely to be a result of human activity since the mid-20th century and proceeding at a rate unlike anything we've seen, causing a cascade of consequences. One of the many consequences that will and have already risen from climate change will be the increase of infectious diseases.
If you could talk a bit about infectious diseases for our viewers, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. Infectious agents are the ones responsible for producing diseases such as malaria, dengue, measles, and so on. Many of these microbes have adapted to the human species as their primary host. There are directly transmitted diseases such as tuberculosis and measles, and there are also indirectly transmitted diseases, including vector-borne and waterborne diseases. For our topic today, though, we will be focusing more on how climate change impacts vector-borne diseases.
Right. Could you explain what exactly vector-borne diseases are?
Yes, so a disease vector is an agent who carries and transmits an infectious pathogen into another living organism. To put it simply, they are infections transmitted by the bite of infected arthropod species, such as our friend here, mosquitoes.
Ow! So now that we know about climate change and infectious diseases, how exactly does climate change affect these vector-borne diseases?
Well, our friend here survives and reproduces within a range of optimal climatic conditions. Temperature and precipitation are the most important, while sea level elevation, winds, and daylight duration are also important, all of which are being affected by climate change. Changes in temperature and humidity can affect where vectors proliferate. These changes can also affect the life cycles of the pathogens they carry. For example, the West Nile virus activity often appears to be greatest during conditions of drought and hot summer temperatures. Although in other cases, wet conditions are optimal for those that carry dengue, yellow fever, and malaria. So a prolonged rainy season can make areas more at risk for the introduction and establishment of these vectors. The link between malaria and extreme climatic events has long been studied in India, for example. Early last century, the river-irrigated Punjab region experienced periodic malaria epidemics, where excessive monsoon rainfall and high humidity was identified early on as a major influence, enhancing mosquito breeding and survival. So we know that climate change impacts the distribution of vectors, depending on whether drier or wetter habitats are more suitable for any particular vector, and may allow them to exist where they previously did not.
It's scary to think that new areas will be affected. Do you know where this may occur?
Well, there have already been cases of invasive mosquitoes becoming widely established across Europe. Climate change could also eventually lead to the expansion of these infected species into Canada, which could result in local transmission of these viruses. But I bet you know more about how this has impacted us at a global level. Could you share your expertise with our viewers?
Yeah, so vector-borne diseases contribute greatly to global disease burden. About 17% of deaths due to illness are caused by vector-borne diseases. Mosquitoes are the most significant cause of vector-borne diseases, and malaria is the most prevalent mosquito-related disease, with about 290 million cases across 90 different countries. Other diseases spread by mosquitoes, such as Zika, dengue, and chikungunya, have spread rapidly in recent years, with there being an estimated 390 million cases of dengue a year. The places most affected by vector-borne diseases are areas with warmer tropical climates such as Africa and Southeast Asia, as warmer climates are ideal for mosquitoes. Climate change has led to rising global temperatures and an increase in rainfall, both of which cause vector-borne diseases to become more prevalent. It increases human-vector interaction. This leads to a higher chance of infection and overall can lead to an increase in global disease burden of vector-borne diseases. Vector-borne diseases also have major socioeconomic impacts as they increase health inequities and inhibit socioeconomic development. As it's not just climate that impacts these diseases. People from low-income developing countries are also heavily affected by vector-borne diseases. Those from low-income countries are more affected by vector-borne diseases due to poor environmental and social conditions, such as a lack of access to proper health care and proper living conditions, such as a lack of clean water.
Wow, so what exactly has been done about this? And do you know if there's anything being done now?
Well, to start, I'm going to discuss some actions taken in hopes to control climate change. Addressing climate change will require many solutions from different levels of society. Nearly all of these solutions exist today hinge on humans changing the ways we behave. As individuals, we can help by taking action to reduce our personal carbon emissions. This includes examples like greening your commute and using cleaner energy. But to fully address the threat of global warming that leads to climate change, we must demand action from our elected leaders to target this problem. Countries around the world acknowledge the imperative to act on climate change with the Paris Agreement in 2015, making pledges to reduce greenhouse gas pollutions. Economics, sociology, and politics are all important factors for planning our future. In terms of prevention and control measures for vector-borne diseases, surveillance methods are used to detect trends for epidemics of disease and is also a useful tool to help predict when an epidemic for a specific disease might occur based on climate change. By studying temperatures, humidity, rainfall, and vegetation of a geographic region, we are able to have a better understanding of climate change and disease development. Therefore, we can better prepare and prevent vector-borne diseases. 4 specific practices have been developed to control or eliminate vector populations. They are habitat and environmental control. This refers to removing areas where vectors can easily breed, for example, stagnant water removal, reducing contact with vectors, for example, bed nets. Chemical control, which refers to the use of insect repellents and larvicides. And finally, biological control, which would include the use of natural vector predators. Overall, infectious disease related to climate change is a global issue that will require a multi-level approach to control.
Well, thank you for sharing this information with us.
Yeah, you too, and it was a pleasure to have mosquitoes on here as well.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for this conference today, but I hope everyone learned something new.